Welcome, everyone. Thank you very much for joining our monthly roundtable. We started an AI conversation during our last monthly roundtable, and we are going to continue it today. We used to be dubbed uh, Digital Adoption Live. We have changed this to Leading Digital Change live because we know it isn't just about adopting, it's about finding the right tools. It's about leading the change as we go forward in this environment that is rapidly changing with AI coming at us from all different directions. So today, I am Amanda Schultz. I'm with VisualSP. We're hosting this conversation on AI for anyone who would like to join. This will be broadcast on LinkedIn and on YouTube after the call. So just to let you know, if you are participating, you agree for that to happen. So thank you very much for joining. Also with me today, I have my colleague and co-host, Tara Porter. Hi, Tara.
Hey,
Uh, she is the content marketing director for Visual SP, and I am a customer success manager with Visual SP. And if you are not familiar with Visual SP, although I think most of you are, we help everyone adopt digital tools. And so we really are focusing on AI right now because we have heard from our customers that it's coming at everyone at such a fast pace. And how in the world do we get our users to actually start using it, as well as protecting ourselves from any of those risks involved and also getting over those concerns, any concerns that people have with using AI. All right. And to lead the charge with this today, to get us started on this topic, Tara Porter is going to show a couple of things. And I think this is the number one concern about AI adoption and why people are resisting it. And it's just, where do I start? Where do I begin? What can we do with AI? And it's like you're looking at a blank piece of paper. I don't know what to write. So, Tara, take it away and show us a couple of some good use cases for AI that we currently have been dealing with.
yeah, absolutely. So one of the biggest things that people face is when they're not used to implementing AI, they're not really sure where to start. It's kind of a whole new language and learning how to talk to AI. So what we have found to be one of the best methods is to help get them started with sample prompts. So this is Visual SP's AI assistant, lays over most web applications, and you can actually create custom prompts based on platforms that they're working in. We also have some pre-generated for you for a lot of popular platforms, and it just allows them to get started, get some ideas on what these prompts could be. So all they would have to do is just click on it, and the prompt's already created for them. So let's say they're in this document and they want to know what departments are logging into a certain platform the most and what departments are logging in the least. What you could do is we have this table that's collected all this data. They could go into the Visual SP AI assistant and there's already a prompt set up for them. And they can click on that and it's just going to analyze the information for them so that they can collect that data. And the more they see these pre-generated prompts, it removes a bit of a barrier. They can understand a little bit more of what they could do with this tool. I know we've seen this at Visual SP as we're all creating a bunch of response of prompts and we're getting really excited about this tool. We're learning from one another. We'll see what someone else has done with the prompt, gets us excited, and we can try new things. So this makes it a little bit more approachable for people who haven't used AI before and are pretty skeptical about it.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Tara. I know that
Yeah.
it's a mindset. It's a way that you think about things, and it's a way that you think about your everyday tasks, what you're working on. I know that I think my family is getting a little sick of me because I've gotten into that mind frame now. And when they say I have to do this, I say, "Ooh, AI could do that," and they go, "Oh my gosh, again." But it's true. Like anything that you're doing, if something is taking you a lot of effort and it's repetitive and you do it all the time, and you think there has to be an easier way, that's one of the best ways to find that AI use case. Because if it's something that's, you're spending so much time on it, it's something that AI could probably knock out 90% of it, and then you can just finish it off. So it's really powerful. There's a lot you can do. So that is a major theme that we are hearing from our customers is our users don't even know where to start. And so we're going through like prompt engineering certification and trying to help, but that only goes so far. So we want to hear about the challenges that you've faced just like this. We've heard of 5 or 6 different challenges that we've heard of so far, the biggest one being where do I start? Um, Anyone else on the line? Who else has seen this within your environments that users just, I mean, there are a ton of tools out there, but how do you start using it? Have you seen this yet?
I guess I would ask, what are some of those other things that you've had folks bring up? Because like we have a lot of things too, and I don't know if they overlap. Um, we really, and I think a lot of companies were like this, is that when some AI capabilities first came out, the company was very much like, hey, use AI, find ways to use AI, And then in the more recent months with, some, data concerns and security concerns, now it's the exact opposite. Everything is locked down, and we've been locked out of a lot of our AI capabilities that we have been using. And ones that we want to use. So I actually use AI quite a bit. And we really wanted to use the storyline and rise capabilities for articulate, and those AI capabilities will save us so much time in terms of content creation and things. But yeah, I kind of, in terms of making the case for it, that's something that's very much on my mind. And then another part of it is, wondering if there's ways to help like integrate AI platforms in some way so that like, we have our VisualSP tab right where the what is it called? Microsoft Copilot pops up, right? And so it's, um, and Microsoft Copilot at this point is not very helpful. I think that an AI tool that actually, uses our help items would be much more helpful. But the Copilot stuff is not quite there yet. So kind of trying to figure out like how to direct people one way or another is one of our big things.
That is huge. That is definitely something we've heard across the board with how many different tools are there? How do we wrangle AI usage? And a lot of the customers that I've spoken with so far have started creating their policies around AI, but it's come so quickly that, and it changes so often that you're right. It's really difficult to keep up with. I know customers have been creating their own policy and making sure that that policy of AI usage and guidelines is communicated broadly across the customer base. But I want to hear from other customers that are dealing with this too and how they've addressed it so far. Diane, I cannot hear you. Let's see. Don't know why we can't hear you, Diane. I think you're just muted.
I thought Molly
Try
brought up
again.
an interesting point because as I think about
Like a
AI
call.
resistance,
Sorry.
oop, oh, I think Molly brought up a great point about we think about AI resistance and sometimes we think about training our team members and helping them with the AI resistance. But it sounds like from one of the things Molly was saying that it also can come from leadership. You can get some resistance that way and how to prevent that. So any thoughts on how any of you have approached that?
I think we were hearing you now, Diane. Okay. Let's see if I can unmute. All right. Anyone else for now?
I think that's certainly a big challenge for us as a government entity. There's a lot more stringent guidelines around what we can and can't do and what happens with our data. And so we're never going to be at the bleeding edge of this technology or that. And so I think part of it is waiting to see how it pans out. And part of it is I think it's there is an element of fear, and I think some of that is realizing that perhaps we don't have all of our ducks in a row as much as we would like data-wise, and not that this necessarily exposes it, but it puts a spotlight on the things that we need to do. And so there's maybe some in-house cleanup that we need to do first, before we start unleashing new tools.
Yeah, I just want to second that. Like I think that for us we're not in government work, but we do have some systems that are not ready for AI. Like I feel like um we need to understand like all of the security, and we don't really know. I feel like a lot of AI capabilities were launched and very excited, and you would even see like, reading up on some of the major, tech sites and things that a big part of the discussion was like, well, how are they going to oversee this? How is there going to be like compliance? How is there going to be, data protections? How are we going to secure this? What are the guide rails? Are there guardrails? Um, and I think that we face a lot of that. And then also it's something shiny and new. And so a lot of people want to just jump right into it, but some of our systems are really old. And so there's a lot of things that would need to happen in order for us to catch up, to be able to do AI, even though some of the tools we already have available to us, but there's certain parts of our business that are just not ready for it. Like we need to get up to like maybe 5 years ago, like technically catch up a little bit. I feel like companies right now are in this never catch up, type stage or status.
Yeah, and to jump on what you were saying, Molly, I think we're having to more and more prioritize where we put our resources. And so how do we do that? We can't jump on every new shiny thing, although I love the new shiny things. I think also there's some nuances. There's resistance coming from above, as it were, which is looking at the big picture organizationally, and then there's individual resistance as well. The individual fear of what's going to happen with my data. We hear more and more about data leaks and so on. So what's going to happen with my information? But I think certainly part of the antidote to that, to use an ASSI phrase, is figure out what you can do in the flow of your work. What is it that's really going to count for this person? It's all very well to see a demo of something. If that's something that is really going to make a difference to somebody's day, they're far more likely to jump on that bandwagon and say, well, I've been kind of wary of this, but it does this thing, and then that's going to save me 10 minutes a day, which is going to turn into this much time saving, or whatever. So I think finding those hooks for people, it's like any other part of adoption. I think that's what's key, and that's going to vary from person to person.
Yeah, I think that makes perfect sense. We've had the what's in it for me is so important with everything, right? And one of the things like with Copilot that wasn't working when we first launched it, is that it was making suggestions on emails for us to send to customers. And somehow the emails were regarding like things like house insurance and things like that. And we're in women's and reproductive medicine. So it really did not make any sense for us and really wasn't helpful. So, I think it's getting better and things, but one of the places, I mentioned before that is really helpful, and Lori, she and I work together.
Yeah.
She did a trial with really digging into Articulate's AI capabilities. And there were so many places in there where I was like, this would save us so many hours of just administrative type work around the course creation. And like we could actually focus on the content and not have to stress out about this other stuff. I don't know, Lori, if you want to speak to any of the things, because I feel like there were some really good examples of use cases.
Well, yeah. One thing too is kind of building on that, but also going back to what you said is, I feel like sometimes individuals and even larger institutions sometimes don't see AI as a tool, but they see it as something that's going to, take their data or cheat. It's going to be a cheat to get around work or something, as opposed to like viewing it as a tool that can accomplish this, this, and this. And that's why when Molly and I were looking at Articulate and we're like, oh, look, it can help take the data we have and outline it, and then we can go over it and use it to build a course. Or like, as Tara was showing the different prompts that showed you exactly how you could take the data with and have VisualP's AI use it then to further the workflow, you start to see it more as a tool. And I think some of that from both an individual and a larger perspective is understanding what the AI does, and what information you're putting in and what's coming out and what the AI is using too. Because, there is also concern personally, like, oh, I created this. Is the AI now going to have some ownership of it or use it? And I think all those things come into play. And a lot of it is maybe understanding what it does, how it can help me, but also what it won't do in a sense.
That's a really good point. Yes. What is it doing with my data? And there are so many tools coming out with their own version of AI that it is so hard to keep up. It is. I kind of want to use that as an AI use case. What AI tools are out there? And please summarize these 5 points for each one and say yes or no, and what they use and what they use to train the agent. Or, yeah, that's exact. And who owns that content after all of it is said and done. Yeah, those are really good points. Yep. Data security and protection. Yeah.
I have no idea if it's possible, but like to that point of so many different platforms, right? We were able to get Copilot approved pretty quickly just because of our contracts that we've had with them, all of that kind of thing. And I just wonder if there's a way for, VisualSP to somehow work with Copilot, and I don't know what that would look like. Obviously, I'm not as brilliant as, being able to know that. But just kind of like ways that you could, help, like we could use elements of VisualSP and use some of the capabilities in Copilot and kind of merge them together a little bit. So maybe we could do some more workflows and like things like that, but using the content that we've loaded into VisualSP. Because we've loaded so many assets into there and it's really helpful. But like, I go into Copilot and none of the content in there is helpful. And even if I put in knowledge articles, it's not as helpful as I have the, VisualSP thing set up, so anyway, just like some thought for roadmap and that might be pipe dream, but
Surprise, little teaser.
Yeah.
Guess
Yeah.
what's being released next week? I see it, Tara. I see you wanting to say it.
I know. I was
week?
like, do we tell them?
Next week? What?
Yep.
Are you good
We now have our integration between help items and our AI assistant that is in staging, and we are releasing it very, very soon. I think the release might go out this week, actually, but yeah, you can definitely check it out and do an AI evaluation. And that's what we're trying to do, because we don't want all of that effort that you've already done getting help
Yeah.
items, content in there. We don't want that to go to waste. And it's a really good way to put those guardrails around what your users are getting as far as responses from AI. Also, if you can say, here's exactly what our process and our policy is, and then the AI assistant will return that. So yay, Molly. Yep. Way to tee that up. I'm glad I prepped you before then.
I'm over here dreaming and like also not wanting to recreate all the content in any other way. Like whatever I can do to save time. That's what AI is supposed to do, allegedly, right?
Yeah. And when you think of a lot of the fears that are floating out there about AI, people think, oh, it's going to replace my job. But I think the mindset shift is it's going to help me perform my job better. And once you make that shift, then you can see all that it can do for you so that you can focus on the more important things, kind of like what you were talking about with Articulate. Like this would free up so much time so I could focus on other stuff.
Yeah,
I think also, I can't remember the statistic, but it's some huge number, like 70 or 80% of jobs in 10 years' time don't exist yet. So, the skills that we are learning now will be able to benefit us to be able to get some of those jobs later, or our kids' jobs, or yeah. So I think that's just another way to look at it. Those jobs that jobs that you walk into, that you stay there for 30, 40 years, that don't change, they largely don't exist anymore. And so we have to be able to keep on changing and evolving and learning. And I think that's part of the resistance as well, is that we're not used to having to change and deal with so much learning as previous generations in that way in the working environment. And so there is a lot of change fatigue as well. People are like, I do not want to learn one more new thing. I just want to stick with what I've done for the last 20 years, leave me alone. And kind of doesn't work anymore.
You're absolutely right.
Sometimes as instructional designers too, and as instructors too, people, just very resistant to change.
Yes. That is why we also, with our AI assistant, and a lot of AI tools have their own prompt libraries where you can find something that really works for you and then share it with others. And I think that will be a huge way of overcoming resistance to that learning something new. Because if you put that prompt right in front of them and it's already going to do that huge, that task that normally takes you forever, then all they have to do is click a button. And, we're enabling them that way. I think enabling our users to all I have to do is click a button. Okay, I can do that. I think that's a lot easier to swallow than you need to learn how to write a prompt, an effective prompt with personas and all the instructions that go into the background. So yeah, teeing up those prompts themselves for your users and having them there for them, I think will be huge. Getting over that. What else? Yeah, Tara, you definitely brought something good up with that. Is it going to replace my job? So I guess thinking about it as when I learn to use this better, that reduces the risk of
Yeah.
Yeah. What other challenges have people seen? I think, Molly, you brought up another good one of, is it relevant? Is it giving me correct answers? Is it giving me what I would expect? And I think in the early days of AI, which we still are in, asking a question and getting the results that you are hoping for, I think the risk of that not working right probably has people a little fearful of adopting any of it now, because you're remembering that bad experience from before. Have you seen it improve from what you've seen in the tools that you've been using?
Yeah, I mean, like a couple of years ago when I was at Red Hat, we used ChatGPT a lot. And we used to joke about how sometimes it was like roulette. Every once in a while, it would hit it so perfectly. And you were like, oh my gosh, they just saved me so many times from writing this stinking title for this article that like I could not come up with a catchy title for, right? But then, the other 25 responses would just be like, that's not even close to what I'm trying to talk about here, you know? Um, and, also really awkward wording and I'm a crocheter. And we used to there were a lot of AI patterns that were coming out, and then people would try to crochet them, and it would be like it's supposed to be like a cute little teddy bear, and it would turn out like this horrifying, like who knows what. And so even those have gotten significantly better, right? But in terms of right now, the emails, the writing tools that they have, I have trouble with being concise sometimes with emails, especially when I'm asking somebody for a lot of information. And so being able to use the concise wording that's actually works really, really well. Sometimes I have to change a word or two, but it's really not that tricky. And I guess the important thing is to remember not to use anything that's like, confidential or, any of that kind of stuff. But if you're just trying to like minimize text in a paragraph that doesn't have any confidential information, it makes it so much better, in my opinion.
It's funny that you mentioned that you're a crocheter because I'm in the scrapbooking community,
Okay.
more on the digital side at the moment, and I've been in some discussions about AI and journaling, and at what point is it no longer yours? If you give it a list of bullet points of, these are the things that I've done in the last 6 months, write me a nice story. Is that really my story? Is that really what I did? Or is that just AI inventing it? So yeah, blurring those boundaries. And I can remember there being previous discussions when people were making art with computers, and at what point is it computer generated or is it genuine art? What is art? And those kind of things. I think it's a similar kind of thing. I know this has been a big topic with books and fiction that has been generated by AI, and what does that mean? Or even authors whose content has been acquired by the LLMs for learning. I have a friend who had a book published last year, and she discovered that it has been eaten up by an LLM without her permission. And
Yeah, Lori is the
so
author, and I can't remember if you got a letter right from your publisher. So Harper
I-
Collins or something.
I've seen people who've gotten letters. I have not gotten one, so hopefully it's not in there, but it's tricky, right? Because you don't really want your book, fed in there and then spit out again, because that's what can happen. And there's a lot of talk, like you said, in the writing community about what an appropriate use of AI and when it's yours and what happens to it. And even like I've seen people who have said they'll put stuff in ChatGPT just for like line editing, which is, is fine. But then their work is part of that AI system because, it uses what you feed in. And then from another standpoint, like I also did an informatics. I worked on an informatics project not long ago, which is a little bit different, but we were trying to use AI for some data mining, which is kind of interesting, right? To get data out, which is a lot of what it does. But based on what we used, we definitely have to check the information because depending on the quality of information that the AI was using, that had a heavy influence on the quality of information we received. So like you had to have that expertise there to be able to judge what you received from the AI too.
Yeah. It's like people jump to enough conclusions with data. Like we don't need like also these, additionally like the AI generated assumptions too. It could be problematic.
I think probably like with any tool, it's a question of figuring out what it can do well now and hold off on the things that it hasn't quite learned how to do. But understanding the difference between the two, that's the important distinction.
Yeah.
And that's what we are trying to integrate too with our AI solution is getting it to really understand each application that we want to use it in so that it is pulling legitimate data and answers for you. So yeah, that is definitely a challenge for any AI tool.
And I think AI is really interesting in all the possibilities and potential it has, but that, especially in the creative pursuits, there's a lot of, very justifiable, questions about it too.
Yeah. Like I was using one of those, I can't remember what it, Discord and Midjourney to try to come up with some like stock photos for myself. Because if I'm generating them, then I can use them, right? So yeah, but it is difficult to get exactly what you're looking for using that right now. So
Yeah,
I
we
can't post
turned
that.
off our Adobe AI stuff. And it's just so funny because I was like, I was not using any of those AI photos that they had created because like half of the time, like somebody had like a third or fourth arm.
Yep.
Like, things like that. And sometimes it would be really, really subtle. So you couldn't tell right away. And especially when you're like looking at the tiny version of an image, right? You're just like, oh, I just need to grab something to put in. But it'd be something like somebody sitting at a computer, but then there's like something just bizarre behind them, like in the background, and you're just like, why did you do that? So I feel like the images still have a ways to go. The LLMs or LLMs have really, the language machines or whatever, they've really kind of come so far very quickly, but I feel like the images are not there yet.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I've used it for a few, like creating imagery for events at work, fairly successfully. But yeah, a lot of it I don't think is there yet with the images. You can get some very strange results.
Right.
It's also
Yeah.
interesting to compare the different generative AIs and see,
Yeah.
some of them are more successful with images, some are more successful with the language, and then even with the language, you can get sort of, if you spend enough time with one, you sort of learn it's going to be better for this kind of topic, and this one's going to be better for that. So I think having an understanding of different ones can also be beneficial.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. I was doing a lot of comparing between our new AI assistant and ChatGPT, and the wins that I got from that, like, oh my gosh, ours answered it and theirs did not. It was exciting to see that ours is
Yeah.
a little bit ahead. But that also makes me wonder how much social media is putting a negative spin on it, because when you're on Facebook now, all you see is like beautiful images, and then in the comments, this is AI, this is AI, and it's becoming almost a negative thing that people are using AI. Is it pushing us away from users adopting AI for work things like this? So yeah, the impact on what we're using in the workplace, I think, is a little bit more than maybe we know as far as adoption goes, because of social media and those negative negative
If you
spins
put
on them.
something on social media, regardless of which perspective you have, you will have plenty of naysayers and people wanting to point out, their perspective and share their perspective and argue why or why not, I think you're right. It is funny, seeing some of the things that especially like the generation just older than mine is just seeing some of the things that they forward on. It's like, can you believe this? And I'm like, yeah, no, okay. No, that's not real. Like, I'm so sorry. I'm like, do you see these things in the background? Do you see how it's, like it's turtle that's doing something ridiculous that I can't do? Like, do you see how it's missing like a foot? Do you see how like, all these different things, But it reminds me of like back when Photoshop it was starting to be used extensively for like magazines and magazine covers. And they would have, covers come out where, they had like they over slimmed down somebody or, tried to put together multiple pictures. And so somebody had an extra finger or something like that. I mean, that happened so much when they've really first started using Photoshop to edit the photos in that way. So I imagine this is part of the natural succession of something coming out is that there will be some weird stuff to begin with. And I think like the next generation, younger generations are able to catch those things so much faster than I am. Like sometimes I'll more catch it like because I'm like, okay, there's no way that this turtle is able to jump over a wall. Okay. Like just, I can't believe it because of, what laws of physics or whatever, right? But then like, just the way that kids can pick it out, it's just amazing. Like I feel like, each generation is ready for a different level of technology, you know.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think going back to what I was saying about the proliferation of jobs that don't exist yet, I think getting that balance between educating our children to be ready for all of these technologies without completely bombarding them with technology, that's another hard balance to get. That's a whole nother discussion. But I think, the world that they're growing up in, where they're basically not going to remember, or especially the younger kids now, they're not going to remember what life was like before AI, which makes me feel really old. But
I know.
what's something else I was going to say? I don't know what it was. It'll come back.
Are you doing any, I guess I'm to help people adopt AI? Are there any strategies that are being used right now to maybe during pilots, to get people used to seeing and thinking of use cases in their workplace? Anything like that?
So we had a mandate that um, we had to have add AI capabilities to some of our platforms by X date. And so that's why they added Copilot. But when they added it, it was done so quickly and it was done without a lot of evaluation. And it was kind of checking the box, you know? And it was something that was easy to check the box on because you just turn it on, right? It's Microsoft. You just say, hey, click, turn it on. But in terms of like use cases, it wasn't really looked at. And so, I mean, of course, the result is, all these people are like, well, what is this thing? Why is it in my way? And frustration. I think it's really important that it's instead done really thoughtfully. I really liked the trial that Articulate did with theirs. You know, because I really was like, oh, how helpful is this going to really be for us? But one of the examples that we could use it for is you can create a course and create a lesson, right, where it's teaching you about something, and then it can create knowledge checks for you. And anybody who's created learning before knows how painful it is to create knowledge checks on a course that you've been working on for over, whatever. This is something that you've been staring at forever. It is really a huge challenge. So something like that, it doesn't seem like a big deal, but it can make a huge difference. And so I think having very specific use cases, like you said, like, knowing what those use cases are and presenting those and the what's in it for me for them, like that is so those parts are so critical. And I think that's always been critical with any kind of, learning, adult learning or digital adoption or any of that stuff, right? Don't just throw a tool at somebody, tell them why it's important, how it can help them, and what they can do like today and use today that's going to, make, save them 5 minutes, save them 10 minutes or whatever.
I actually shared in the last roundtable that I had done just that. I took a
Oh, yeah.
certification at the end of last year and fed in a chapter of what I'd been reading of my 500-page study guide, and then said, give me 10 multiple choice questions, and spat that out. And that's how I learned the material.
Love it.
Great. It was great.
Yeah, I love it. Because
I felt very modern.
yeah, yeah, it was very modern. Yeah, I think that's awesome. What did you use for that?
I was using Claude AI.
Okay, I don't have that one. So
I've
sometimes what we
played with
have to
several of
do, and
them.
I shouldn't even say this, but we'll take some of the stuff. And again, it's not the stuff that's like, this is all like how to use a technical platform. None of it is proprietary or confidential, but like putting something like that into an AI thing on my personal computer so that I can spit out the things that I need. So anyway, I will be checking that out on my personal computer for my personal use.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's cool.
Anybody else on the line that hasn't spoken up yet? Uh, any other aspects of AI that have led to resistance of its adoption?
Hi, this is Stacy. I don't actually have the camera's not right. I can't use it. Anyway, I'm here. I'm the records manager at a utility company, and some of the resistance, one is actually just people don't want to use another thing exactly. But the other thing is I think that they're afraid that it's going to be incorrect, which is a valid problem to have. But I know actually I just asked our IT manager, like, what are we doing about AI? We got anything planned? So I guess that the topic has been broached with our administrative assistance team, which is an odd team to broach it with because they're not IT, but they would probably be the heaviest users because administrative assistants do a lot of repetitive travel, booking, all that stuff. But my supervisor actually is the purchasing supervisor, and he does a lot with AI, writing out purchase orders, bids, RFPs, RFQs, because it's just boilerplate text filled in with different names, different people, different places, different totals, whatever. So he's been actually using it more than me for sure. It doesn't, for right now, it's not useful for me. But if I could figure out how to use it to like extract records out of Outlook and put them into folders in SharePoint or something, that would be amazing because nothing like that exists at this moment. We've looked. But the only other concern that I really have is if somehow AI unleashes itself in our shared drive or somewhere where, well, like internal drawings of power plants and stuff like that exist that should absolutely not be getting put somewhere else. And then some country gets a hold of it all. And then they could just use it willy-nilly and know exactly how our power plant is set up, blah, blah, blah. It's a national security issue. I mean, we've seen it happen before where power plants have been attacked and somehow they knew exactly where to go and how to get there. Anyway, that's those are the things that we're dealing with when we think about using AI. I think AI is cool. I think it's great. It's really helpful for stuff like PR, where they can just make really beautiful things and add in, do interviews and lay it on top and make it look great. Anyway, that's where we're at with so whatever happens is gonna happen. We're just we don't want to be at the bleeding edge, as someone said before, Caroline, I think, because that's a little bit of a recipe for disaster. I'm gonna let the 19-year-old Gen Z kids blow it up and then we'll use it.
It's so true.
Scared me. I mean, that is big though. The risk of something going that wrong is huge. And especially if you're a company or an organization that's had some kind of security breach, in the past 5 years, which I think that's probably getting more and more common. Having that happen would also be a deterrent to try something new like this, especially if it's like Stacey said, like you said, digging into your files and having access to things like that. That's yeah.
Yeah,
That
it's
is a
scary about
scary
the
thing.
power grid. Like, because that
What?
could happen. The power grid thing is especially scary because those are things we've seen in the media like happen, and um that would, yeah, those are things where I feel like before they roll out these things, they really need to figure out some like guide rails or something around it, like where companies have a certain responsibility who are creating, like companies creating AI and working with some of these like, language models and like things like that that they take into consideration some kind of guide rails, like because I don't think there's any governance over it right now. And then just in terms of who owns that data and what they're doing with that data and who they're sharing that data with, I don't know that we really have that in place yet. And I could be wrong, but um, I think that that's where it's really scary because, we look at like 23andMe, right? They just had that breach, and so all these people were like, oh my gosh, now my DNA, who knows who's gonna own it, and things like that.
Now they
But
just closed.
I'm sorry.
And now they've been
They just,
bankrupt and
yeah,
closed.
they've just gone bankrupt.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
there we go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's here.
So now they're gonna sell potentially DNA,
Yeah.
the data
Yeah.
records, which is another.
And you're not going to have any control over it. So those kinds of questions, I mean, those are really big questions, and especially for y'all in like government work and utilities work. I mean, that's highly sensitive. You know.
Stacey,
Absolutely. It has any. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, Stacey, I really liked the idea of targeting the administrative assistants. I think that's a super smart idea. I might have to borrow that one.
They do a great job.
Yeah.
They really do. It's because they're like the face of the department. They're the ones that really communicate the
Yeah.
info because the trickle down theory is a joke. Supervisors
I've
do
been
not do that. But for the
Yeah,
most part, it's
I've been
definitely the
doing some
administrators.
work with our admin assistants, more on the SharePoint and content management side, but I love the idea of helping them with on the AI side at some point down the line. Just not sure how long the line is right now.
Right. Yeah, I think that that's so brilliant. And I also liked I think you had said maybe your manager or somebody, one of your colleagues, that they were using it for those like RFPs and those, boilerplate type things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if we could free up some of our folks to be able to not do the mundane and not have as much mundane work, they could focus on what they're really best at, and where their brains are really needed. We just think about how, I mean, how much of our daily work is not actually helping us. It's just like trying to make it sure that we have everything, all the information out that we need to get out, like things that are just mindless tasks. If we could get rid of those, I think that would be really helpful.
I totally agree. We're using, like you can see, we're using the Read AI and it summarizes meetings. So now I don't have to do that and put it into a ticket. And, it does free up a lot of time because of those mundane tasks. So that's a really good point.
Yeah, I love the meeting notes. I love that you can do like the transcript and then you can search through the transcript to find things. You can summarize like big agenda points, next steps. And originally, or maybe even like just 2 years ago when I had some of those AI notes and things like that, they were really terrible and really hard to understand. But it's come so far in such a short amount of time. Like now I'm like, okay, I can't take better notes than this. Like this is really helpful. And it's yeah, so I agree with you. That's like really huge benefit.
And Stacey, what you were saying about that very particular group of people that they're starting it with, maybe a big way that you can help adopt is go role based with those use cases. Look at the different, like this is someone's position in the company. Here are their goals. Here's what they have to do on a day-to-day basis, and look at each one and say, okay, how can we take that redundancy out of it and make the mundane a much smaller portion on their plate on a day-to-day basis. So maybe going on a role-based basis, I mean, to start off with and pick, say, what are you spending the most time on that you should not be? And that's how you start building your use cases for AI.
Yeah.
Huh.
I think there's a financial aspect as well, especially if you're looking at like say Pay Copilot or something like that, where it's a big cost, especially if you're looking at rolling it out to lots of people in the organization. So I think I was thinking about this earlier, that if you can somehow measure the cost right now of, say, how much time people search for stuff or how much time people spend writing notes after meetings or whatever it is, and then quantify that and then compare that, then that's a powerful way to be able to build a business case from the financial perspective. So
that's so true. I mean, that's how we get away, ahead with anything here is, by pushing that ROI. And that's the only way that we were able to get, like, not the only way, but it was a big part of why I was actually able to finally get VisualSP, here, and being able to, show that, it's really important. And, with part of the arguments that I'm making for AI with Articulate, right, is, this is how many hours it takes to create, to take an outline and make a course. This is how many hours, like these administrative type tasks that you don't need to be an instructional designer to do. Like you just be able to copy and paste, and right now it takes all that time. So really trying to add up all of that and trying to figure out, okay, well, what is the rate of pay for that amount of time and how much time is it saving? So yeah, I think that's really important.
Quantifying this is a great way to push, yeah, and show the value. Absolutely.
Yeah.
We're
Especially
coming down on time. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say just really quick, especially for those administrative assistants, right? Because, there are so many like, and I've been an admin in the past and like just so few hours of the day and so many things that get in the way of actually doing the things that like would be strategic and helpful and, help people who are trying to have strategic conversations and just make them more ready for things. If you weren't spending so much time with like ordering office supplies and like writing emails and coordinating travel and like things like that. Yeah, I feel like some people think of it as replacing jobs, but if we look at it instead of being able to do like more interesting work and be able to contribute in maybe a more meaningful way where you can use your strengths rather than just, being AI, being copying and pasting. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, maybe managers should just start asking all of their employees, all of their teams, what is the most painful part of your job?
Yeah.
And then that's how they can, okay, let's figure out how to get that off your plate. Maybe AI can do it. Yeah.
I just had somebody come to me with that pretty much that exact question today. Well, they were saying, this is a really painful manual process. And we actually went through, we timed it, and then we were working out, so trying to quantify how much time it takes for the whole process on a monthly basis, and then looking at some ways that we can improve it. But I think there's so many opportunities like that. They just have to be framed in a way where people understand that you're not trying to take their job, that you are
Yes.
trying to
Yeah.
help free them up or whatever. And especially if somebody's been doing that for a really long time, it can be kind of intimidating for them to have to think about learning something new or changing their process, because they own that process and they built it and it's important. And
Yeah.
so yeah, helping them let go can
Mm.
free them up for bigger and better things.
Absolutely. All right. Any final comments or insights or tips that anyone has learned to share with others today? Trying to think of a few more myself. I'm looking forward to days when AI, you can automate an actual process would be cool. But that means digging into those systems and linking them and integrating AI, which is one of the biggest fears. So,
Yep.
yeah.
So true.
Something I will say that I really like is the summaries that you get on things like Amazon, where you've got 46,000 reviews and it gives you the summary. It's like, that's actually really nice.
I
So true.
agree. Yeah. I started when that started, it didn't say this is AI. It
Mhm.
just gave you summaries. And I thought, oh, that's really cool. So are we kind of kicking ourselves when we say this is AI? Is that putting up a little bit of are people backing off when we say that? And if we were to just put it in front of them, they'd go, oh, this is cool. And without knowing that it's AI, maybe that would dampen some fears and hesitation a little bit. I don't
I like
know.
getting
You're
kids to eat
absolutely
vegetables.
Right. Yes.
Sneak it in.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's one thing that we were discussing too, is the fact that we're calling it AI actually causing people to step back a little bit. So
I think 100%. I mean, especially when it first came out, everybody wanted AI and they wanted it everywhere. And now it's like the scary boogeyman. And it's the opposite, right? And that shift happened overnight, it seems like, to me at least. But with like social media, I don't use it very often, but right now I'm like admitting like a Facebook group for a friend of mine. And it's a lot of work. And they put in all of these AI tools that make it much easier. Like there's all kinds of things, but they don't call it AI. So when, it's like, hey, do you want to create a post that, reoccurs monthly or like a monthly post or whatever? Like, yeah, I do. Let me click that. So exactly what you're talking about, right? So I think that that actually is a really smart approach. I like that.
you're definitely gonna have to consider that. Yeah, consider that in what you roll out to your users and how you package it. Yeah,
Yeah, it's rebranding.
Mhm.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. All right, we have 3 minutes left. I see Asif is on. We haven't heard from him. I don't know if his mic maybe isn't working or if I know he's traveling too. So
Like he was walking around somewhere when his camera was on.
There he is.
Ah, he
There
is
he
walking
He is
is.
walking
around.
around.
He is. Perfect time for me to call you out. I'm sorry, Asif.
Okay, I was actually in a session where at the Microsoft MVP Summit, so I had to get out before I could talk. Uh, Good to see you all. It's such a great, consortium of people. Everybody's been contributing. That's been awesome. Thank you so much for being here. Uh, as you can imagine over here at the Microsoft MVP Summit, also in any Microsoft event, they're talking about AI nonstop. But there's an agenda from the Microsoft side to push AI to everybody. Please don't give in to that. You do what's right for you. I think I very much believe in that. You know, if you push, people will resist. And that's the main point or topic of this session today, right? AI resistance. If you show them, and I've heard this from so many of you, you show them what's in it for them, the WIIFM, that's going to work automatically. You know, how do you take a process that's usually taking days or hours and turn to minutes, and give them time back, let them do higher level activities to progress their career? What's in it for them? That's what it's all about. It's not about products. It's about solutions. I didn't want to interrupt before. That's why I was listening to everything, but I just didn't want to impose and get in there.
Well, it's great to hear from you. I love getting the insights directly from the summit. So
Yeah.
Well, can't talk about this too much, or they're really gonna fire me or make me mad. Yeah. Yeah.
well, thank you.
But all right, I
Thanks,
want
Richard.
to stop the video again.
All right.
Thanks. Good to see you all.
Safe travels,
see you,
Asa.
Asa.
Good to see you. All right. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for joining in this conversation. It is a very relevant topic right now, and I'm sure we're going to be talking more and more and more about AI in the future. Any recommendations, any suggestions, any tips, anything you have to share, please do feel free to reach out and share them with us. You can email me directly at amanda@visualsp.com. Otherwise, definitely show up at our next roundtable, which will be next month. We're going to try to do them on a monthly basis. We will have different topics going forward, but I'm sure a lot of them will revolve around how can we make this better using AI. So, all right. Thank you so much for your contributions, everyone, today. Thank you for co-hosting, Tara. I appreciate you sharing with everyone the prompt examples, and we will have more coming out from the side of VisualSP very soon. So I will keep you all posted.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
So,
Have a great
Bye.
rest of your day. Bye-bye.